ESPN's Commanders beat reporter. Hey, John.
What up, guys?
Should fans be worried about the Commanders after 2 preseason games?
I mean, I think everybody should be lined up on the bridge ready to panic to no end, right? No, I don't. Well, here's what I say. I think I would say, based on what we've seen in practice in the collective, like in the joint practice against Miami and all that, like there are reasons to think like, hey, this could be like Jaden Daniels looks good. The receivers look good, right? Like there's depth, and there's actually now with Stephon Diggs here, and then you also have Chico Okonkwo in the pass game. So that all looks good. The defense looks very aggressive. What we've seen in practice is not what we've seen in the games, not just in terms of play, but in terms of style. So I think like so you see that and you say, okay, here you go. And then, but I think we all know the concerns, and it's like not just there's the injury, the Tunsil injury is a massive one, right? Because of the trickle-down effect. And you have Brandon Coleman's gone out there. He's done a fine job, but he's not Laramie Tunsil. But then it also takes away what they really need too, which is interior depth. And so I think, like, so there's concerns, or if nothing else, there are questions there. Whether you call them concerns, questions, things that have to be answered a certain way to feel better about things. And I think the hard part there is with Nick Allegretti out, if he's your, most likely going to be your starter, that's tough. And I know these guys know him. He knows, he's a smart guy, that he knows them, but you still got to work together. And, until we see how that looks, it's going to be difficult to know like the final product. And you need cohesion up front. And that's part of the question / concern for me. And I think for others too. But it's also like, do you have the depth up there that you now need to get through a 17-game season? I think that's also a definite question.
Hey, John, do you think that there's any second guessing going on as to the move to get rid of Tyler Biadasz before the season started? No? Okay.
No, that was done so early. That was not done with to me, it's never the move you make. It's the corresponding moves that you make to reveal, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so if you're going to do that, first of all, you're doing that early. You weren't happy with what you had, period. This was not a money-saving thing. It was nothing more than it's not working for them. And this is like not just, I would say, like, when players get cut, you're going to hear a team side and you're going to hear things, right? Stuff that I heard was more about the play, about like protection calls, was not coming from within. So, like there's, in other words, it's not just a spin. So I don't think that they regret that. I think what you have to look though is like, did you then, from that point forward, did you handle it the right way? And they went after Tyler Linderbaum. They were willing to pay a certain amount. The Raiders went crazy and got him. And then it's like, okay, what's next? And they really haven't, it was all, when this first happened, it was like, okay, you got Nick Allegretti, and you can bring in, ideally you bring another veteran center in to either compete or to be an experienced backup. And that's the part that hasn't happened yet. And, Julian Good-Jones has played 2 snaps in the NFL. Matt Golden is a rookie. Those are your backups. Like, that's the part that it's not the initial move. It's like, it's the rest of it, because you can survive anything. Like, and Biadasz's film last year was, nobody's film last year was all that good. So I don't think they regret that but did you handle it the right way the rest of the way? That's certainly, the question now for sure.
Fill in the blank, John. Sonny Styles' play has been blank.
Up and down.
Okay.
I think there's so I think the first week, could he have come downhill better? Yeah. And I think, there were times the other day that I think he did that better. I don't think that we've seen all the ways that they're going to use him. So it's kind of hard to say, like, I think, for example, like that 50-yard touchdown run, that's not on him. And it's, I think it's kind of, he's getting, not that he couldn't have handled his thing better, his play better, but the touchdown doesn't happen because of him. Could he have handled could he have handled the block better? Yeah. And, can you find better ways to get off the block? Yeah, that's what he has to learn. And I think one thing with the preseason to me, which is good, is you find these, like, I'd rather for them, for his sake, that it happens in a preseason game than in a regular season game. Now, if that always happens, if it consistently happens, you're not being able to shed blocks like that or whatever, like that becomes a problem. I don't know that we can say that at this point, but I think the other part with the linebackers is you're really not, again, you're not seeing them used in those preseason games the way I think we're going to see. And that's where I'll see, like, that's, in practice, he's looked good. But I think in the games, he's looked like a guy in his first season, right? You have some plays where it's like you see certain attributes, and then others where it's like, okay, can you handle this better? And even the other night, there are times where he appears to be filling his gap where others maybe were getting moved out of theirs. So I don't know. And that's one where without talking to the coaches about that, I don't know, so I don't want to say he did it great and others didn't without really having full knowledge. But that's, sometimes you stop the film and you're like, okay, this guy's here, here, and here. This guy gets moved from B gap over here to the B gap on the other side. Like, that's probably not what you want to happen. So, but yeah, I think he can play better. I think the other thing with him is what they've talked about is just don't be afraid to make mistakes and just play fast. And I think that's what you really want to see. And I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's like, I'd say, I think there's been a slight overreaction on social media to it. But I think, can he play better? Yeah.
To me, it looks a little tentative, but he's a rookie. He's learning.
Yeah. So. That's exactly right. Like, I think don't be afraid that, you don't have to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that, Ohio State, like, that was something there too. You don't have to be perfect with it. You just have to play fast. And I think we saw a little bit more of that the other night. But I still think you need to get there because you were like, how do you see it the other night? It's like, how's this going to look in the regular season, right? And you're playing a very good run team in that first game. So you want to make sure that you are coming downhill a little bit more aggressively at times. So I would agree. Like, he looks like a guy in his first couple of games, and that's it.
Yeah. Overall, though, defensively, I'm happy. Big jump from the week one of the preseason, and again, take preseason a grain of salt. Again, vanilla stuff. You never know what to make. But week one wasn't great. Week two, I thought on the whole a lot better. A lot of guys popped, a lot of guys flashed. Amik Robertson makes a play. Even Josh Joseph, you can say up and down, but he made some play.
I like him.
There were a bunch of guys that got sacks, like 5 guys. And I'll say this, I don't know where they're going to put the kid, but I thought that international guy, he looked like the real deal on the one play there. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know what they're going to do with that guy.
I think
TJ.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So I thought just overall, like, defensively, big jump from week one, and there are a bunch of guys that popped, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think, it's hard because, like, Detroit, you're not facing...
and they suck. And
you're not facing that. So it's always hard to see. But then, like, Chason's not playing, Oweh's not playing, Deron Payne wasn't playing.
Which is good.
So it's a little, so it's a little bit different. But I think, again, like, the thing
Quan
that I'm
Martin,
most curious...
wanted to mention him too, John. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's had, I think he's put himself in a good spot.
Yep.
Just with a couple picks and... it's funny because someone's like, well, it was against the backup quarterback. Well, yeah, and nobody else got that pick either. Yeah, so he's, I think one thing with him is there's still versatility, and he's taken the ball away in 2 games, and that's a major point of emphasis for them. But with the defense, what I'm most curious to see is when they are all out there together, and you get Oweh and Chason back, or Dorrance Armstrong out there starting in week 2, what does that look like with Sonny and Frankie Louvu, and how you maneuver with that group and what you do with them, because I think that's when you can start to be really aggressive because you have the athleticism and speed out there that is just different from what this group has had. That's what I'm most curious to see. And I think, like the other night, the play where Amik Robertson gets the sack, like that was, I liked how that unfolded because like the line slants to the left and you basically push Dobbs to the other side, and that's where the blitz is coming from. And, I think what Robertson gives you too, and Quinn said this, is like he calls him a dog-ass competitor. I think if you watch him on film, that's where he is. Now, are there limitations? Yeah, but he brings that. So, there are good signs there. I think I'll be really curious to see how it looks against Baltimore in the joint practice on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And then, again, what does it, when does Owe come back from the strained calf? What does it look like when it's all together? And starting in week 1 and we know they play a tough schedule early. What level are they at early in the year? That's going to be the big question, because I think you need them to be at a certain level for sure, and can they get there right away?
Hey, John, one of your colleagues tweeted, I forget the name, female though, but she was like, it wasn't Nikki, but it was somebody else. But that essentially the offensive line, her claim was, this is what I was saying all through camp, is that we could see the issues, and that even when Jaden's making plays, that she was quoted as saying essentially, that would have been a sack in a real game. When you do these controlled scrimmages, joint practices, whatever, I know you can't hit the quarterback, obviously, but can you fairly judge? Because everyone says Jaden's been sharp, and I believe you, right? I believe you 100%. Yeah. But is he really sharp, or would he have been sacked on a bunch of those plays and they're being exposed in the preseason? You know what I mean? I'm trying to.
I think. Yeah. No, I get you. There are definitely times where I'll even talk about whether it's whether for ESPN or on the podcast, he did this, but it would have been a sack.
Yeah.
But you continue through with the play, and it's the rest of it's good, so you take that, but it's really that would have been a sack. So there's definitely times where that happens for sure. Mm-hmm. And I think when you're watching it, you take into account. I think the hard part to always know is, with a guy like Jaden, what could he have gotten out of? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's sometimes it's obvious. I would say last year it was much worse last year with it. And so, I think the thing too, unless definitely that happens. I think the other part is, if you have a defense that's ultra aggressive, are you as ready for it now as you need to be? If you're facing this kind of in a game, what happens? What kind of game plan do you do? If you're, or like Minnesota's last year. When they played Minnesota last year, the big knock was a lot of guys here felt like they didn't have the answers to the pressure that Minnesota was bringing, and that could be with the routes, et cetera. And the feeling with this offense is they feel like they have more answers to handle that. Well, so I'd be curious to see it in a game too, to see. But I think the other thing is when you're switching guys around or having to move guys around or whatever, there's going to be some issues, and you don't have all your guys out there, right? And so I think you see the results of that at times for sure. And so there are definitely times where it's funny because, and this is not a knock on anybody, but the fans are out there, and Jaden will complete a long pass, and it's everybody cheers, but it's well, that was a sack, and so you know what I mean. And so, but I get why they're doing that. It looks good, and it's a good throw and all that. But yeah, it would have been a sack. So
Right. All right, John. Good stuff. Good insight as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Thank you, buddy.
John Keim from ESPN.com. We're the Junkies. Coming right back.